we're at that point where the nation state race for Bitcoin is about to begin. And that's going to happen that's going to really kick off between now and the next 10 years.
Yes. So that framework and that timeline, I think, are crucial. And this is one of the, I guess, hard lessons I've learned at Bitcoin, which is you get these waves of adoption. First it was the cypherpunks, and then it was the libertarians, as well as some, hardcore coders. And then we got retail in, and then you got family offices, and then hedge funds, and then pensions, and then governments.
And then football clubs.
And then football clubs, yes. And every one of these sectors of society, or piles of money, really, pockets of money, has its own view of the world and has its own timeline and has its own unique dynamics with respect to herd behavior and group behavior. So it's generally hard to be first, although in the early days you get paid so well to be first that it's worth taking a flyer.
You don't want to be last.
You don't want to be last. But the bigger the organization, of course, and the more committee group behavior it is, the more career risk you have as a decision maker. Now, obviously, I'm getting into, funds and or pensions and quote unquote institutional money. And then governments are like the ultimate institution, committee, organization that's run by committee. Unless you're a small country that's basically run by an executive that for the most part does what he wants. And so when you look at it through that lens, it becomes clear who the early adopters will be. I mean, we say all this in retrospect, right? It's like, oh, of course it was Bekele. But there's some truth to that. And then the clock has started, as you say, and the game theory plays out. And then the question is, though, what is the timeline? And we, Bitcoin believers who have a long-term thesis and know that Bitcoin is fundamentally severely undervalued today, and of course we should be taking as much territory on this network as we can afford to without blowing ourselves up. What we sometimes forget is how long these cycles of adoption for those different segments of buyers and adopters take to play out. And so I've been humbled in that regard. I was in the camp of so I didn't come till 2017, or I didn't buy till 2017, and I was the guy, one of those guys who's like, oh my god, it's happening now. Hyper Bitcoinization is happening now, and woohoo, in late 2017, and it didn't. And eventually you come to realize that it could happen at any point. You don't know. There is that upside risk of the giant green candle and just mayhem. But unless and until that happens, it just looks like regular adoption curves across all these segments. And how long do these segments take to adopt? And governments, I did not anticipate a government getting in last year, so that was awesome. But likewise with corporations, Saylor fired the starting gun, and then he publicized the playbook, right? He had the conference. I'm having deja vu because he just did his recent conference, which happened a year ago, and everybody was excited that it's happening. The old Ron Paul meme, it's happening.
It's happening.
And it just takes time.